Hari Om. Welcome back, guys. So, for past few days, I have been researching on some topics which I want to share with you guys. So, today I will be talking about addiction, which is the most and by far the important topic, and every human being on this planet has always faced or gone through this phase of addiction. But everybody thinks addiction comes from many different ways and multiple sources. But I'm going to share with you guys a very interesting point of addiction which will open your eyes. Let's get into it. I will be talking about an experiment which a guy carried out in 1970. So this was an rat experiment, but eventually it tells a lot more things about humans in particular. This experiment was carried out by Alexander, conducted in 1970. This experiment was called as the ratpark experiment. This challenges the conventional view of addiction as purely biochemical process. His work suggests that environment plays a critical role in addiction, shifting focus from the substance itself to the condition under which individuals live. So the experiment, which was carried out in the traditional way, where rats were placed in a small isolated cages and given access to two water bottles, one with regular water and the other laced with morphine or cocaine, which is very addictive in nature. The rats in these isolated cages almost always consume the drug-laced water to the point of overdose or death. This reinforced the idea that certain substances are inherently addictive. However, Bruce Alexander questioned this assumption. He wondered if the environment, specifically the isolation of rats, contributed to their addiction. To test this, he created a rat park, wherein a spacious environment with ample food, toys and opportunities for social interaction. Rats in this enriched environment were also given the same two water bottles, one with the regular water and one with the drug-laced water. The results were profound. The rat in the rat park showed far less interest in the drug-laced water. While they did try it, they did not become addicted in the same way that the isolated rats did. They were primarily drank the regular water. Their drug use was very significantly reduced. This experiment not only shows the different aspects of addiction in the perspective of rat, but as well as in the humans. This experiment suggests that addiction is not solely the result of chemical dependencies, but is deeply influenced by an individual's environment. In human, addiction is often viewed through the lens of moral weakness, genetic predisposition, or exposure to the addictive substances. But Alexander's findings imply that social isolation or lack of purpose and stressful environment may be more significant drivers of addiction than previously believed. For example, think about it. Modern society often isolates individuals through urban living, social media replacing in-person interaction, or stressful work environments. These conditions somewhere reminds you about the rat cage, driving people to seek escape through addictive substances or behavior like drugs, alcohol, gambling, or even excessive technology use. In contrast, individuals who live in more enriching environments with strong social bonds and fulfilling activities may be less prone to addiction. But while researching on this topic, I found out something dark about human nature. When humans were deprived of connections, meanings, and fulfillment, they are more likely to seek comfort in substances or destructive behaviors. This runs counter to the ideas that people are innately resilient and capable of thriving in any circumstances. Instead, it reveals that our biology is deeply tied to our environment, and when that environment is hostile or unfulfilling, our capacity of addiction rises. This also brings an uncomfortable societal implication. We live in a world that to some extent forces isolation, consumerism and stress, urbanization, loneliness, and a focus on productive over well-being create the kind of condition that may give birth to addiction. Not only it harms, but there is also a profit side, which these commercial enterprises benefits out of addiction, like addictive behaviors, whether through alcohol, fast food, gambling, or digital products designed to be addictive. Example, social media platforms. We have seen lot more of videos, experiments which have been carried out wherein humans get addicted to the social media or the smartphones. This highlights a more cynical aspect of human society. Addiction, in many cases, is engineered or at least amplified by the structure we have built. So, somewhere now we have come to a broader idea of addiction. It is not related to a human being, but somewhere it is related to the environment that human lives in. People often turn to substances not because they want to, but because they are trying to copy with the deeper emotional, psychological, or environmental issues. They reframe addiction as a coping mechanism rather than simply a moral failing of neurological trap. The bad side of humans here is that our society often perpetuates the condition that breed addiction: social isolation, economic inequality, and lack of fulfilling opportunities. The human drive for dominance, profit, and control sometimes exaggerate these problems. This is evident in the way governments, industries, and even cultures treat addiction as a criminal or moral issue, rather than addressing the underlying causes that make people more vulnerable to it in the first place. So, to conclude this, Alexander's ratpark experiment that challenges simplistic view of addiction is solely the result of exposure to the addictive substances. Instead, it paints a nuanced picture. Addiction is deeply rooted in social and environmental factors. Humans are driven to addictive behaviors when they feel trapped, isolated, or deprived of meaningful connections and purpose. This truth is uncomfortable because it implies that solving addiction requires more than just treating the individual. It demands systematic changes to the environments we live in. It suggests that as long as our societies continue to isolate and alienate people, addiction will remain a persistent problem. This uncomfortable reality is that we may have built a world that encourages addiction by design, and that breaking free from it requires a deeper, more systematic shift than we often acknowledge. Next point is seeing addiction as a manifestation. At a deeper level, addiction can be seen as a manifestation of human existential anxiety. Many people turn to addictive behaviors to fill a void in their lives, whether that void is lack of purpose, connection, or meaning. Addiction, in this sense, is not just about pleasure or avoiding pain. It's about seeking something to cling in or otherwise chaotic or meaningless existence. Humans have an inherent need for meaning, purpose, and connection. When those needs aren't met, whether through relationships, meaningful work, or personal fulfillment, people turn to substitutes. Drugs, alcohol, sex, or even digital distractions can offer a sense of purpose or relief, even if it is temporary. This is why, for some people, addiction is less about the substance or behavior itself, and more about what that substance or behavior symbolizes: an escape for meaninglessness. Next point is cultural or industrial addictions. On a societal level, certain systems benefit from addiction. Industries that profit from alcohol, tobacco, or gambling, and even digital technology are built to keep people hooked. They exploit vulnerabilities in human psychology, delivering dopamine hits through ads, consumption, or interactions. This creates a feedback loop where addiction becomes not just an important individual issue but a cultural and economic one. Governments and industries often maintain environments where addiction can flourish because it serves economic interests. Consider the alcohol and tobacco industries. Despite knowing the harm these substances cause, they remain legal and heavily marketed. This is not simply a reflection of personal choice but of a broader societal complexity in maintaining addiction because it serves the economy. So to put everything together, I'm going to give you few dark truths of human addiction. Humans are pleasure-seeking creatures who, when given access to immediate gratification often struggle to resist it, especially when faced with the void, suffering, or emotional pain. Next is addiction is often a reflection of a deeper societal and personal feelings, stress, lack of purpose, and trauma, all of which drive people seek solace in substances or behaviors that offer temporary relief at a long-term cost. Addictive systems engineered both at an individual and societal level, whether it's technology companies designing apps keep us glued to screens or industries profiting from harmful substances. The reality is that addiction is profitable and many structures exploit that. And the last is humans often driven by a need of control or escape. When life feels uncontrollable or unbearable, addiction offers a peace for control or escape. This desire can outweigh rational thinking, even in the face of knowledge about the harm being done. So, to conclude this, addiction, when examined deeply, is not merely about substances, dependencies, but about human vulnerabilities. It highlights how fragile human psyche can be, especially when faced with a world that often fails to provide the fulfillment, connections, or purpose we need. People often turn to addictive behaviors to fill gaps in their lives, gaps that stem from social, emotional, or existential deficits. And even when fully aware of the negative consequences, the drive for temporary relief often overrides a long-term well-being. This unfiltered view shows that addiction is both a personal and a systematic problem, and one that touches on fundamental truths about human suffering, the need of connection, and the way our societies are structured to exploit vulnerabilities. To put it all together, I will give you an example through a movie. There is a movie called Limitless. I want you guys to watch this. The first thing, whenever that person or the hero or the actor gets fully conscious, at that moment he realizes that it's his environment that he needs to first fix it, because the environment plays a very crucial role in our mental well-being and helps us out to be far from the addictive behaviors. And the one who knows all these loopholes, all the problems, not just only in the personal but also to the societal level, can only be free from these addictions.